Welcome everybody to the August meeting of the Library Marketing Book Club. We are so fortunate to have a special guest today, author of the book that we read this month, Scott Stratten. So Scott has an option for two different great intros on his bio page. So the one tells about him being president of Unmarketing, 6 best-selling books with his wife, Allison. And if you listen to the books, he and Allison record them together, and that is just awesome. National Sales Training College professor and speaker. And we're so fortunate to have such a prolific speaker coming here and donating his time to come and talk with us about the book. I really like Scott's short intro though, which is Scott Stratten is going to yell a lot. Enjoy. So, I don't know how much yelling, but we're all ready for it. So thanks so much. And Scott, if you'd like to say something to the group as an intro, that would be great.
You know, your bio is a little too long when it bores you, and it's your own bio. So that's where the thing is though. For that bio, I speak at conferences. That's how I make a living, and I've been doing it for about 15 years now. And what I think, like, don't say anything. But if they didn't say that highfalutin bio that I've got, people would think I'm the sound guy when I walked out on stage. Like, they think I'm adjusting the microphone and the speakers and stuff. So we have to give some kind of thing of just like Scott, the AV guy doing the talk. So I need to give an actual hello to the library world, and you all can understand where we messed up something with libraries, and I need you to hear this. So I'm like, this is gonna be worth this coming on this thing just for me to get this out. So being a marketer myself, in my brain, it's always how it works. We always, when we launch a book, so Allison and I have done 6, and if you want the full behind the scenes, Allison's the writer of the two of us, and I'm the stage guy. So I'm the yapper, she's the type, and we just meld our brains together to do this stuff. And she's a brilliant writer. And so, so my job with all the books is obviously the marketing, the sales, the talks, and all that stuff. And so for the first book, we did, this kind of promotion, those promotions that authors put out there, buy X number of books, you get this. And for the first book, I did, if you ordered 100 copies, I would come and speak at your event, blah, blah, blah. For the second book, we did the same kind of thing. It was 200 copies. And this was it was called the Book of Business Awesome. So on one side, it says the Book of Business Awesome, has a ladybug and stuff, and it's all the things to be successful, but it's a flip book. So you flip the other way around, and it's upside down. The back cover is the Book of Unawesome, and it's got a ladybug squished on it. And it's all the bad stories. So half the book is bad business stories, half the book is good business stories. And one of the promotions we did was, if you bought one copy of the book during this little window we had, we would donate a second copy to whatever library you chose. Nice. And we're like, it's such a nice thing for us to do. We're such good people. Like, we're really, really good people. Like, we do good things. What I didn't even remotely look into was how libraries acquired books and put them on the shelf. Do you know how we sent the hundreds of books out to individual libraries across mostly the States? Was we simply direct shipped it from Amazon. No letter, no note, no instructions, just a rando book in the mail with no explanation. And apparently that wasn't proper protocol. And I have never, I need to word this right. Nobody was furious with me. They were angrily confused. Is that the right term? Why do we have this book, and how can I get rid of it? Right? And so I had one library said, what am I supposed to do with this? And of course, in my head, 10 years ago, and I'm like, well, I believe there's others that look like it. Just put it along those shelves with other books, and and then we should be fine. And they're like, this is not how any of this works. And she's like, can you come pick it up? And I'm like, you're in Arizona. And I'm like, she's like, I'm not going to mail it back. And I'm like, can you just leave it on the sidewalk? Like, I don't know, like what. So I learned after that the process and how I should have, what I should have done was what I should have said is, if you buy a copy of your book, pick one of your local libraries, and I'm going to send your librarians just cold hard cash and gift cards just for putting up with the world. That's what I should have done, and then I would have created interest in the book much more.
Well, it was a very nice thought. It was very well intentioned, but yeah, libraries are quite. And I when I came, I've been in the library world for about 7 years. But when I first came here, I would have thought pretty much the same thing you did. It was like, yeah, people just send books in. Sure.
I'm such a, but this actually amazingly enough segues into a whole other part of stuff. And I'm sorry for kind of just going off on rants here, but
this is great.
I've been in my house for 2.5 years. So whenever I see an audience, I just lose my mind. So is that one of the big issues for me and for libraries in general was I just wasn't even aware of so many things. And by the way, that's my fault. That's on me to understand that. But even the functionality of libraries in general in a community, I'm going to be as transparent with you all as I possibly can, and being open with you as I possibly can. So 6 books ago, when I was a younger and more how can I put this, arrogant Scott, one of the things about, like my best friend's parents were like, oh, the first book came out, and they were like, we're so excited for it. And I'm like, what'd you think? And they said, well, we're 5th on hold in the library for the book, so we're waiting for it. And I'm like, you're rich. And, like you, and I'm your best friend of your son. Buy 100 copies, please. And what I never looked at was how libraries functioned as a community center and a catalyst in a community, and as opposed to a place where you got books. And so that was eye-opening for me, because of especially my arrogance towards it as well. I used to be that author that said, yeah, I love libraries, we support them, but really what I want you to do is go buy the book. And that's no longer my brain. It's no longer my head or how it all works. And the function that libraries have are so crucial in communities. So I just wanted to give you a background of my brain and my journey through this.
Oh, it's fantastic, Scott. We talk about that a lot too. I mean, there definitely are things that, that is something that we as library marketers, and some people are very surprised to hear, why does a library need a marketer? What do you need to market libraries for? And it's because, there's not that great of an understanding of what they do, what they are. And you have people that say, well, I can just a book, why do I need to use a library? And books are still a leading part of the library, of course, but it's about access. It's about trying to get access. And there's a lot of great messages that we're trying to get out. So I'm glad that you had learned some things about libraries. One thing that I really if I can kick off a little bit of the discussion about the book, one thing that I really enjoyed in the book was your tale of failure when you when you went viral and you didn't know weren't ready for scale. And boy, howdy, that is something that a lot of us deal with, a lot of our libraries deal with, and if and some people I know have had a chance to read the book. Not everybody has, but if you haven't, a great chapter in there. Great. Maybe I don't know how great it is for Scott to reread it, but where Scott was very successful in getting a video to go viral, and then realized that the scale of it was too much to bear, and all the costs and everything that went with it. And you had to lose. You lost a lot of email contacts and a lot of things like that, and
everything.
Great lessons like that.
Yeah. Well, that was with. I always thought that I had heard that line before. Something like was like, and we had put it a version of our own version of it in our book was like, not being prepared for success is worse than never having it. And when I heard a version of that, early on in my world of like building my career, I just thought that was a prick thing to say. I'm just like, yeah, okay, yeah. Ooh, must be hard, with so much success. Ooh, I know, I feel so bad for you. But it was true. One of the parts was true, because if you mess up when something hits, when something becomes popular, whether that's a viral video like on my side of things, or a program or something you do, is that you do realize, because what happens is you make all this effort, you put all this time and effort and hope into marketing things and creating programs for it. And then you keep trying and trying, and you're just trying to convince, because marketing is about, creating awareness and driving, hopefully a purchase intent or decision. Yeah. And so you do all this, and you finally, break that door down, and you're like, okay, it worked. And then it messes up. What happens is you are worse off, because all those people that took that shot, that took that chance, now have that in their memory, because branding is a very basic concept. Branding is very simple. When I see your library's sign, or the name of it, or the logo, or the program that I've heard of, we think of two things: the most extreme story I have experienced with you or have heard, and the most recent experience that I've had or heard. So when that screws up, you're like, oh, I'm not going to that other program. I went to one last summer, and it was brutal. Right? They didn't have this on hand. They didn't have this on. So it really is something that not being prepared for. So it's one of those, almost like it's a what if scenario, that you would sit down and say, all right, so ever since that time, and to give people who don't know the story very quick, this is about 20 something years ago. And I wanted to make these viral videos, and 20 years ago was very different than today. And it was bandwidth before. It was like, we were trying to make videos go through a 56K modem, and you had to keep the video files down to a meg, and it had all my old school geeks in here remember these days, right? Where you had to keep it under a meg in size. There was a loading screen. It was in Flash. And so if you remember the cheesy, there were stock photos and cheesy sayings and music. If you remember those from the mid 2000s, most of those were my company. And so I apologize for that on behalf of everybody. But what happened was it went viral. And so the key to those things, to give you the inside scoop, the key to those were the landing pages at the end. So you go through this emotional experience without manipulating. You try to go through this emotional experience and say, if you like that, please sign up for my newsletter, and we'll keep sending these out. Well, at the original thing on that page was sign up for this newsletter, or you can also order my CD that I had created called Relaxation on Demand. And it was 12 tracks about 12 things from a 24-year-old who had no idea what he was talking about. and making all these tracks. And by the way, do not make a CD called Relaxation on Demand with one of the tracks being driving. And then people listen to it driving, because it puts them into a relaxing mindset, and they may or may not get into a crash, but that's neither here nor there. So what happened was, it worked. It went viral, and I sold 1,000 CDs. And what I wasn't thinking was, well, how were we burning CDs back in the day?
One at a time.
Right? I had a 2-time CD burner, 2 times. So my 46-minute CD only took 23 minutes a copy to burn. And then I was taking like an Avery label, and trying to line it up over the CD and stick it down. Donna loved that one, by the way. I saw Donna go on her camera. She was loving that one. She might have. I had CD Stomper.
My husband is a
Stomper. Yeah.
My husband is a tech geek, and I mean, I remember those days.
The burners and the two.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. The 4 times read, 2 times write.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then you get a bum copy, one of the burns, and then what I did was I just refunded all the sales. It would have taken me 6.5 years to do the burning. I did the math. Like, I think it was crazy. And I got 45 inquiries for keynote talks, and I was like putting it in a bubble mailer with a VHS tape and a color printed one sheet. And so I turtled. I wasn't. So if I could do that stuff again, that would have been okay, because there's difference now. And I know you're a little more constrained in your industry, but like we have the ability to say, look, if I need extra help, I can a temp help. For me, it would have been a virtual assistant I could have had on hand to do a certain amount of work if I needed it. I just wasn't looking at saying, yeah, but Scott, what if this does work? Yeah, because you're so used to things not working. You're so used to things like marketing can be a very depressing field, because you just feel like nobody's ever listening to stuff. And if you're not doing the most cutting edge thing that comes out, tonight, a new platform, and you haven't mastered it, you just feel like you're just spinning your wheels. And to be honest with all of you right now, I don't think I could hack it as a marketer today. I'm totally honest with you right now. It's not even an ounce of jest in that, because it seems exhausting to be a marketer these days. When I was a marketer and when I did consulting, back in the old days, a decade or two ago, it was like it was strategy. Yeah. And it was, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we want to do. Let's go down for this quarter, this 2 quarters, and try this. Now, we're most of the content that flies in front of especially younger demographics is expiring. Like, you're making content that literally or figuratively expires, whether that means it's gone, like a Snapchat or an Instagram story, or it might as well be gone on Facebook or something, because the algorithm kicks in and time decay comes part of that. And it's just when I made a marketing thing, I want that to last for months. Like, I don't want to make this stuff and then because you can't put the same amount of effort into that stuff. And it just feels like sometimes it's like a Jack Russell Terrier that's had too many sprites. And it's just like next thing. And I'm just like, if we just calm the hell down for a second and realize we can make content for those sites, we can do those things, but they're a whole job. They can't be added to somebody's plate and just said, fit this in when you can. Right? I've never met a marketer in my life and says, you know what? I have absolutely nothing to do. Right? I have absolutely nothing to do right now. Anything you want me to market? Like, it doesn't happen like that. Right? It's social media on its own. And I have a bias for it because that's how I got known. Also, that's how I met Allison. So I have the greatest social media ROI in the history of the planet. But with all this stuff, social media by itself is a full-time position, let alone a few positions, depending on what, we threw this thing, and I've been on the social media train since it pulled out of the station. And I've watched the industry go to this point where social media formed under marketing made sense, even though it's also communications, and we can talk about that in a bit, but we won't. And it comes under there and floats there. And then they're like, well, it's just a thing. It's a tweet. The kids are doing it, whatever. It got lumped in. And then we're like, oh, you want to be our social media coordinator? And then I read a job description for a social media coordinator, and that would have been an overwhelming description for a director of marketing. Like, I'm talking copy, I'm talking branding, design, right? Talking with the public. I'm like, those are 5 roles here. And they're just like, no, you can do them all. And by the way, get crazy metrics too. Like if Kardashian can get 1 billion, why can't you get 1 million on ours? And you're like, Carl, you gave me $9 in my budget for this. It's just like, it kills me.
Yeah, and we definitely feel that. I mean, I see some people are in the chat saying things about, often doing it solo, and that's the thing. A lot of libraries, they may have one marketer that's doing all of it. They may have some libraries, it's the director who's also doing the marketing.
I was going to say, sometimes it's not even a marketer, right? It's like, it's the whole portfolio is just like, and it's like I used to be in HR, and that's what I went to school for, if any of you can believe that. And one of the things I went in for was I write job descriptions. And the problem is, it seems like most jobs in marketing and in the library world, most of them are filled under that last duty that says, and other duties is noted. Yeah. It's like, you just get all the things. Yeah. When in reality, it's every single thing takes focus. Every single thing takes time. And it's just thrown on top of the stuff. So I feel for people that have, absorbed a marketing portfolio on top of anything else to do, because I feel bad for people that just have to do marketing in the industry because it's so overreaching now, and so it can be so overwhelming.
Yeah. My favorite is we have some older people on our board, and they are complaining about my job performance because I'm not getting enough coverage in the local weekly newspaper.
Well, that's what, so one of the things. So I do a lot of talks to realtors, and one of the things I put out there once was I just said, "Can you please just answer me the greatest myth, conundrum, biggest question in the history of real estate? Why do you guys keep advertising homes in newspapers?" And they said, because our clients don't think we're doing a good job unless they see it in the newspaper. Yeah. So it wasn't even for the marketing. It wasn't even for the effect. It's for them to check a box, like you're saying, Donna. They're like, if you're not getting, but marketing does come down to this one thing that I would forget a lot of the times when I was doing it, which was marketing isn't about what I like. And marketing practitioners, especially when digital took over a lot of it, it became, well, let's try to see if I can fit it under my personal preferences. Like I like using Twitter, so the library likes Twitter. Well, that's not necessarily the case. And it also depends, because with marketing, before we start, just like talking about what do we do if this becomes successful beyond our wildest dreams, but also who do we want to market this thing to? Because if it's going to be the community, like Donna had mentioned, and the board was upset it's not in the paper, but if that's who you are only marketing to, then that makes sense. And I would create the greatest ad in newspaper history to go at that, and I'll be like, and then I just sit on my laurels for a year.
Scott, I'm not allowed to buy ad space.
Oh, I see. Okay, so
I'm supposed to get media coverage.
All right, so what I would do, okay, so what I would do is I would get a van or something with the library things on it. I would run 3 to 5 people over, and then what I would do was I would have the books fly out of the thing at the same time, and say, and then yell out of the door, "Are you too busy to read now?" or whatever, something like that. And then, like, I'll promise you'll hit the paper, and at your arraignment hearing, just say, "My board wanted us to be in the paper." Like, there's Donna, marketing's about creativity, isn't it? You know, we got to be creative in these things. we got to do something. Hey, you want the news to show up? I got a way to do that. Maybe I'll drive the van. Don't do it yourself. I'll do it. Canadian comes down screaming about libraries.
Yeah, and Leslie, who joined the book club not too long ago. So Leslie, you're the first one who had my welcome survey when it sent out to new joinees of the newsletter list, which I haven't been doing for 2 years, but I do it now. And Leslie asked, one of the biggest problems is, and it's what you're talking about, Scott, is how do we get the adoption of our board, of our staff, of our leadership for that idea of marketing? How do we, so how do you, what have you found successful? And Leslie, you can expand on this if you want, but, what do you find successful in terms of getting rid of other people's idea that marketing is what I like? Leslie, is that kind of what you were saying? Is that what you face?
I don't remember what I asked.
It was around how do we get staff adoption of marketing? Like, how do I get library staff to appreciate and understand what our marketing is?
So that was one of the things that really struck me about early on in Unmarketing, when Scott said that marketing is not a task, it's not a department, it's not a person. It's everything, every engagement that we have with past, current, or future customers, or for us, we call them patrons. And that hit me so hard, because I'm trying to work with our staff on, from the very beginning, creating great calendar descriptions for their programs so that people will want to click on it and read about what that program is. And that's not going to happen if they choose a horrible photo to represent the program, or they don't have a great short description of the program, or it's misleading. Yeah. So I've been working with people on that, but I get a lot of people who look at me like, marketing. Well, that's your job, lady. And
Leslie, you should have my job. You should have my job because I'm also in charge of all the programming. Yeah. So I have to come up with the programs and market them. So it's all in one basket.
That's twice my job. So kudos to you, Donna. Good job.
But with one of the things one of the issues is you can't try to drive marketing respect at the same time as trying to do marketing. Where for me, it's I always marketed in one way, which was I'm going to show you the effect of it. And so when somebody comes to me, and the problem is you also let me get one thing out of the way. There's a great line by a comedian I love, and he just says some people just suck. And like that, it's like that's the whole sentence. And so you're gonna have people and they just do. I dealing with the community and general public is a wonderful thing, and can be very rewarding. Also, it can be a giant pain in the ass. And people think they're like entitlement isn't the right word. It's an all caps entitlement with some people sometimes, and it's that 80-20 rule. But to me, it's like 1% 99, and that 1% it's all day every day you have to deal with sometimes. And when it comes down to those things, a few things that I can do that I think can help both trying to sell something to the board, to a committee, to staff, or to people wanting to run programs, is I always do it is just a comparatively kind of move, which is I show usually out of state, farther away ones saying, look what they do, look what they're doing, and look what they're getting from it. I'm not one for vanity metrics, which is like the view count on Facebook or view count on TikTok or whatever it's going to be. I'm more like engagement, comments, driving visits, inquiries, website visits and stuff. But vanity metrics can also be your friend when you're pitting your place against another place. So if your board is like, everybody has the town near them that their town doesn't like. I don't care where you are, but like I live in the town that everybody doesn't like. So I'm in that town right now. So I'm in Oakville, outside of Toronto. All of Canada hates Toronto. All of Toronto hates my town. So like we're the epitome everybody hates here. And so what you do was to say, do you see what they're doing in the library over in the town next to us, over on here? And this is what you have to match the metrics to the mind. And when it comes to like something like descriptions, which I was about mistakenly to say something simple like descriptions, because it is not simple. No. Because it's painful, because you want to convince somebody the very basics of you just have to get somebody interested in your class should be not even have to be said, but a lot of times it's not, because they're thinking of the class, of running the class, right? And also sometimes when somebody says to you, or I thought you did the marketing, they're terrified. Sales and marketing is terrifying for a lot of people. That's why I think a lot of narcissists like sales, because you don't have that thing of shame in you too, right? Marketing is hard. Sales is hard. Filling an event is hard. I don't care if it's 12 people. Getting 12 people in this economy, in this day and age, to get 12 people to commit to something in a certain time, that's really hard. So what I would do, Leslie, was something, as an example, like the descriptions. If they'd come in either through email or in person or, God forbid, fax or something like that, where I would have ready would be a very basic thing, like just pick a real basic class that's offered that everybody, whatever it's going to, I don't care. It could be yoga. Mm-hmm. So you could have like a yoga in the place, and I would have two descriptions, and I would have a crappy description that looks a lot like what they wrote, but not. It was just loosely inspired by what they wrote. But you know what I mean? I would have a bad one, and I have a good one with a great heading and then a great description. And then I would say, which class would you like to take? And I would put it back to them. At least you're doing, because otherwise you're just gonna, if you haven't already, you're just gonna run your head into the wall 100 times. You're trying to convince them. That's why. But I would have it on hand, right? And Donna just said it here, like an A/B test. It's exactly that. It's a split test, right? And it's just like, which would you class? Because sometimes it's also getting people, making them realize you're on their side.
Yes.
Because it's like if I said to somebody, well, I don't have to write that, I would look at them and I would say, we both want the same thing. I want your class sold out because I think it's a great class, but also because I know you. But those people don't know you, and so they have to get a little bit of a taste of what it's going to be. And when you angle it being on their side, it'll help some people, and then again, some people just suck, and it won't work, and their class is going to have one person or none. And I've done that, by the way. I've also done talks. My first talk, by the way, infamous talk, was at our local library. Infamous
right.
talk.
From the book, yeah.
From the book, and I should have pulled the picture up on my frickin' laptop, and I didn't. Because I hired the film crew. I had a burnt orange shirt from a wedding party. It was looking snappy. And I showed up. This is 20 years ago. And I showed up, and the day before, they painted the walls pink. And I clashed slightly with the wall. And I had 9 people there, and 3 of the people that were at my session were there for yoga. That was the next hour. Right? So it's like the problem is what people, it's what they aren't telling you sometimes. And I don't want that to lead to assumptions because that can quickly, but sometimes what they aren't telling you is, are they concerned about the class being people even showing up? Because what happens is you get imposter syndrome, some people, right? Sure. You get it and say, because part of people are like, I want to do the class, and it's going, and you're just like, oh my God, I'm going to be doing one. And then you're like, do I have it right? Because like, I don't get nervous speaking. But that's not a talent. It's just some missing synapse in my brain. I've just never had that. But the majority of this earth does. So especially if it's their first class, because I really think if anybody has anybody that is going to be running a class or a course or anything, a program at your library, I think if you don't have one now, a great thing would be have just a one-pager or something about tips on doing a class. Not doing a class in the library, like here the light switch is here, and this is what we do in an emergency situation and things like that. But I mean, a couple of tips. One, it's everybody gets nervous, it's okay. 2, nobody in the audience wants you to fail. They actually want you to succeed. That's why they showed, right? And 3, nobody cares about you. They're there for the information, and so give it to them, right? And so there's I think there's just little opportunities, but I think really it's showing them that you're on their side.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, these are librarians. We're people who love to share information and share good information, but none of us got into this business because we like to sell or market. Mm-hmm. So we need guidance in this area, and I do think that giving them that safe space to feel like we are here to support them and help them, share this great program that they've created. Makes them feel special.
I think because a lot of people will not show you what's going on behind the curtain on them, saying like, again, that, and if you help them with that, I don't want to be over emotional Scott here, but it's life changing if you help somebody and then they go do their first talk or something. That's a mountain you just help them climb.
Sure.
That's a big deal, and then they equate that to the library, just like I equate my burnt orange shirt and a pink wall to my library. But we have that. We have those. We never know when we're having that effect on somebody, but we can figure out sometimes when there's prime opportunities for it. And one of those is somebody's first session. It's just such a big deal. And you have those moments throughout the day, throughout the week, at a library in different situations. But I needed everybody here to hear that, is that you make people's day, and you can make their week, and you can change their life, and you don't even know it's happening. And when things get busy and you get in the weeds and the world's upside down, it's really cool that you all work in a profession that actually affects people's lives, because so many professions don't.
Yeah, and at the best price point that exists, right?
Amen.
So easy to sell free stuff.
Right. But you'd think it was, except I think libraries
if it's free, people are suspicious of it.
Right, and I think they're underutilized, and I think it's the more people that know everything you all provide, it not necessarily means everybody comes uses it, but they can support it. The more awareness of all the things you do in a community creates a better community even for the people that don't use it, because they can tell people who do want to use it. And it was invaluable for me when the kids were young and the programs that were on there. I took my Red Cross babysitters course at my local library when I turned 14. I brought the kids every frickin' day there sometimes when it's just like, I got nothing else for you to do at home. Let's go make a mess somewhere else for a bit, and so that's been a central thing in my world as well.
I'm going to brag on Angela for just a second. She did a video, was it maybe last week, where she talked about this marketing survey that's going on libraries in Poland or Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, Poland.
Yeah, and talking about the things that keep people from coming to the library.
Yeah.
And and whether it's a bad association with something that happened to them as a child, or and it was a really interesting, I mean, they're still running the study, but it's some of the feedback that's already coming in from that is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And knowing those things really, certainly helps change your perception too on how to approach things.
Yeah, Angela had some. When Scott, when I asked folks for some questions, Angela had a couple questions. One of them was, can I share this? Here we go. Oh, share. So we have some kittens here. Are they in danger of being killed by a QR code? So
I've seen you speak a couple of times at Content Marketing World, so I told everybody the QR code kill kitten story.
Thank you.
So QR codes, what's the latest? Because as you, I'm sure know, they've come back into vogue again. What you want to yell about them, or what?
All right, let's see. All right, so let me give you the quick background for those that don't know. We do have a book called QR Codes Kill Kittens. It is one of the only business picture books of business screw-ups out there, as far as I know. You'd all know better than I would. And we proposed it as a joke to Wiley, and they said, awesome, let's do it. And I said I was kidding. And then they said, no, it's a great idea. And then I went to Alice and I said, hey, baby, I just got us another book and I didn't mean to. And she's like, cool, now I got to write that. So QR Codes Kill Kittens, it was a thing, like a lot of things just came out, blurted out on a rant on stage. And it was always about, I don't hate QR codes. I hate marketers and how they use them, because QR codes, I've been using them as boarding passes for flights for years. It's like, but it was like, you put it in the book, there's one being towed behind a plane, going in the sky. Like, I'm just like, I just want to give you all a second, or getting one in an email. Like, can we all just have a moment of silence for that thought process? That I get the email on my phone and it says scan with your phone, and I'm like, how do I scan so anyway, so that was kind of a joke for a long time. But the funny thing was, when the pandemic hits and then all the restaurants start going to QR code menus, and then everybody starts Googling about QR codes, guess what book comes up first? And so this explains how Scott got himself in the New York Times twice in the past year, because of a joke book from 7 or 8 years ago called QR Codes Kill Kittens. And I still stand beside what I'm saying, although back then, my beef with QR codes was, I said, and it's on video, so it's on record, was if your phone like natively could recognize it in its default camera, then it's different, because back then you had to download a QR code reader and then scan it. And I said, that's ridiculous. Android phones were, like a lot of things, much earlier to having the reader in the camera. And then iPhones did it. And then now it's way different now. It's just like, pull it up and it shows you what you should be doing. So it's much, much better now, but still, yeah, it's different.
That's very good. That's great that came back around for you and got you some more earned media.
It did.
But the other thing that Angela was talking about, Angela, you may have to clarify this a bit, and I watched a little bit. You had your video recently, and you've been talking about quiet quitting, and so maybe if you could explain a little bit about quiet quitting. And Angela was saying, she's an ambitious person. She has ambitious people working for her. So how can So what is your thoughts on, Angela? Let me know if I got this right, on how you can be ambitious but still have the work-life balance. So you don't have to do the quiet quitting, or is that what you're talking? Is that what your thoughts are about why people are doing the quiet quitting? Angela, did I get that kind of right? Or
yeah, you did great, Chris.
Okay.
It really just like, I get the concept of quiet quitting, and for anybody who might not know what it is, it's doing your job. You're doing the job that you're supposed to do and not going above and beyond just because you have to. I do it because I want to, but not because it's expected of you. You're doing your job, which is what you're supposed to do, which is what Scott said in his video. And so I'm curious, I feel like that is a trend now. And then how does it fit in? How does an ambitious person fit in with that in the scope of marketing?
Great question, first of all, Angela. And then going to Angela Rhines in the chat really summed it up perfectly, which was quiet quitting is just another word for boundaries. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what it is. Because quiet quitting is a term invented by people to want to explain why. And what it was done by was against younger generations was, well, they just don't work as hard as we did, which is all crap. And so quiet quitting is exactly that. So we used to call it here as work to rule. So if our teachers union, if they couldn't strike for a certain reason, they did work to rule, which was they didn't any extracurricular type of stuff, and they just did their job description. Well, quiet quitting, the same idea. You're doing your job description. You're trying to achieve balance. We're trying to, but if we called it boundaries, we called it this, people were like, it's this, there's soft terms to them. They're they're soft skills. By the way, the term soft skills is a ridiculous term on its own as well. And it's actually like very misogynistic. And like there's so many things about that term as well. Like we equate certain skills with females, and then you have certain things with way that this type of stuff should go. And therefore soft skills are like this. Well, it's not I don't want balance. It's quiet quitting, right? So we turn these terms in there to throw the term out. It's simply people with boundaries. But the problem is, like Angela, you're telling me here, what about people who want to work, who want to have that drive, have an initiative, and they actually, that's what they want to do. People are wired differently. And that's my problem with the term quiet quitting is, why are we even using it? What people have different ways to work. They also have different job duties. They have different things. Some people, and Gladwell comes out and says people should all be going back to, you guys should be going back to the office. Gladwell frickin' owns the building that his company's in. I understand why you want people going back to the workplace if you own commercial real estate. I get it. But like those type of things, and we're trying to say we want to segment group like this here, this group here, this group here. So we're going to do lazy people who aren't me here, younger people who aren't me here, and all the other things that aren't me here, and then I can compartmentalize things. When the reality is people work, again, differently and have different drive. This should not then go against people who are driven to do more. Because also in your world, you have different things, because there's actually a good cause about it. This is about your community. But the problem is you're also all still human. And we have this issue of well, how dare somebody do their job for 8 hours a day and then go home? Like, how dare they have balance? And that's not balance, by the way. You're still spending more time at work. The term gets me a little bit. It just gets my back up, because it's not about younger generations. It's not about that there's certain people don't have the same drive. It's not about, well, I can now do my own thing or I'm doing the gig economy. It's about people saying, I'm not going to run myself into the ground, because that's not what life's all about. We're not doing that now. People are just saying pass, hard pass on this. People are like, yeah, but nobody wants to work. No, they just don't want to work for you.
Yeah.
There's a difference. There's a difference from that. And if and I'm going to talk about in general in business, okay? If we were hemorrhaging customers and we lost all of our customers, we wouldn't go out and yell at our former customers. We'd figure out what the heck we did to change everything. And if we hemorrhage a bunch of employees, oh, nobody wants to work. No, you have no idea what it's like to work with you or for you. That's the whole statement, by the way. There's nothing after that statement. That's the whole statement. You yourself, myself, and everybody on this planet has no idea what it's like to work with or for them. It's not negative, nor is it positive. It's a statement. So understanding that can change a team a bit as well. We don't see our short sides, the stuff that we don't do well, or we don't acknowledge it, or that's all we focus on. Right? It's like a job. I read a great thing last week. It was like, if you don't have imposter syndrome for your first 3 months in a new job, check yourself. If you still have imposter syndrome after 6 months on the job, check your boss. Like, it was a really great, like, I love that quote. It was such a great, it was on, I think I saw it on Twitter or something. I got to find the source of it. It was brilliant. And I'm like, that's really good, because I'm not concerned about, like, one of the, our direction we're going now, we're going into unleadership, a lot of stuff we're talking about and that type of stuff, because of just how everything's going on. And that was the biggest thing was, because I'm not worried about people who are worried about being good leaders or good team players. I'm worried about the people who aren't concerned. I'm worried about the leaders who say, what else can I get my team to do? You know, I'm worried about leaders who are like, well, I'm good. Right? It's just not the world that some people want to be part of. It's not the world people are going to dive into. It's not even the same world anybody's going into. Like, I have this thing I do on stage about generations, and I rip on young people, and then I flip it in the middle of it to be on their side. Angela, you've seen it at the content marketing world, right? And I get everybody going in that. We're supposed to be in this together. And how we rip on younger generations. Look, if you're dealing with people who are young, especially people who are still under like 25, like their brain hasn't fully formed at this point, they've been through something we never went through at that age, which was the pandemic. That can mess you up. That's a lot. And it's a lot for everybody. It's a lot for you, by the way, as well. We've been through so much crap, still going on. And we're still taking shots at people. People are making it a hard workplace to go. If I'm at a place that wants to be like they were 3 years ago, I'm leaving that place. We had a global event. Talk about disruption. Like, I used to talk about disruption. I didn't mean this. Right? Like
it's all your fault, Scott.
Yeah, geez, right. I'm talking about, like, TikTok showing up or something like that to be great. And this happens, and I'm like, how do we ever want to go back to just the same old? How do we go back to this? And we're just like, yeah, but everybody, you need to come back into the workplace now. And like for jobs that absolutely don't need to be there. And I'm just like, what? No, pass. People rather not work, like, because they can't afford a house anyways. So why are you going to go into work to save for one you can't afford? Like, it's gotten so crazy. Tuition is exponentially higher and the only thing that's stagnated over the past 100 years is wages. Like, you had a better chance on a financial ratio to buy a home in the Great Depression than you do currently. If that doesn't open your eyes, and if you own a home right now or something, then you look in the mirror, clap a little bit, wipe your brow, and then turn to everybody with a little more empathy, a little more kindness, because that's all we got is each other doing this stuff. And it's enough to say, no, well, you're younger and you're this, or you're this gender, or you're this race, or you're this, that, and you're not going to work. Pass. Just absolutely pass on that. And for everybody who's not going back into that, I applaud you. Life's too short. Oh my God, that was a rant. I'm so sorry. I don't even know where that came from or where that went or what question started it, but it's dangerous and I'm sorry.
That's what we paid for, Scott.
When I hear you talking like that, you sound like so many of my friends with children who are going to graduate from college or recently graduating. They keep saying, oh, they're lazy, their values suck, all they want to do is travel. I don't think they're ever going to have a home. They keep saying,
that's not their
kids.
That's not their fault, right? That's not their fault. It's not their fault they can't afford the home. That's the problem. That's the whole thing with this. And we look at them, and then we get mad at, like, I'm 47. And we look at somebody who's 17 and we get mad at them because they're not reacting to a situation like we would today, right? Like I've had 30 years on top of that. And because we have something as when you're older than somebody, you have one thing they don't have, which is wisdom. And that's just time plus mistakes. You've had time to make the mistakes. They haven't necessarily. And then we judge them because they don't have the same wisdom. It's lunacy a lot of the times. And then also it goes the other way. But this isn't today. This is always younger people going after older people too. When it's also, we have wisdom, but also we have had more time on this planet to experience loss and pain and suffering and disappointment. And if we just work together to figure this crap out, because I can't do anything about my age. I think 47 is the best frickin' age on the planet. Why? Because that's what I am. I can't do anything about it. I can't. You know the best age that the kids are? All 5 of them? Whatever age they are right now. I can't change it. We spend the first 21 years of our lives trying to look older and the last 6 years so trying to look younger. It's lunacy. But then I say it as a straight, able-bodied white male from a suburb in Canada. There's no pressure on me to look a certain way or look at me. Look at this. I get to show up like this. I show up to keynotes in jeans, looking like the sound guy, and everybody's like, that's Stratten. He's got a great personal brand. No, this is just what I woke up in. So looking at that privilege I've got with that, I think going forward, if you figure out the 2 traits you need to make something work better in the future, and the 2 leadership traits that I'm telling every single audience I talk to is self-awareness and empathy. Understanding that we're all in this together, but also empathy is not centering yourself around their experience, but also self-awareness, which is, I don't know what it's like to work with me. And if you ever want to find out, it's tough to swallow, but if you ever want to find out, just throw out 3 words. I've used it in a lot of the books, a lot of the talks. Just use stop, start, continue. So what should I stop doing? What should I start doing? What should I continue doing? I would send it out to people who run a program. By the way, if you want their feedback, if you don't want their feedback, don't. You just screw you, right? But it stop, start, continue is such a base, but also focused feedback request that it really helps potentially see how you land or how you're doing. Now, if you want to make it a little less personal towards you, I would write something and say, if you ran the library, what would you stop doing, start doing, and continue doing? I would ask that to the community. I would ask that to staff. I would ask that to people who run programs. I would be sending that out all the live long day to people. Almost all the answers you're looking for are there. Now, there's an argument that people don't know what they want, and thank you, Henry Ford, and we'll figure that out. You can have the card any color, black or black, right? But I really think the answers are already there. This is also why the biggest problem I think with companies are, I think their innovation's already in-house. They just haven't let it out. They haven't let the people speak who have it. They only let the loud people speak in meetings. They only let the people like me speak at meetings because I'm brazen and I'm loud. When somebody's sitting in a corner, probably the best idea ever, but they don't want an asshole like me to come around and knock down their idea, right? Like you have them there. And if you do it this way, and I would do it, you can use like Google surveys, if it's free. I know that's a good thing for your budgets, right? It's free. You can put it out there. You could either leave it optional to have a contact. If you did it to the general public, I would probably just leave it anonymous anyway, so people didn't feel entitled to a response. But what you're looking for is not each feedback and then taking it to heart and changing stuff. You're looking for patterns. So if you look at your surveys and you get 20 of them and 12 of them mention the library hours, then you know it's a stress point. Now, it's not a good sample size, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Somebody saying like, well, the programs are always in the evenings and I only can do weekends and that's why I'm not going to them, or something like that. So then it opens things up.
Then you run into the situation of, oh, well, we want this program, programming interest survey. We want this program to happen on these days during the week after 4:00. Okay. So then you schedule that program on that day during the week after 4:00 and nobody comes to it.
Of course. Yeah. But remember, some people suck. It's just going to happen that way. That's why I'm not changing for every piece of feedback. I'll give you an example of this. Quick, when I did consulting, again, a lifetime ago, we had a private school in Toronto that brought me in and said, we're having a problem with churn of students where we don't find out. So I said, oh, when do you find out they haven't enrolled in the next semester? This is private school, right? This is big bucks every year, and it's funded by parents. And I said, when do you find out they're not coming back? And he says, when they don't come back. And I'm like, no, you don't. I said, but actually, there are signs before that. And I said, when was the last time you asked the parents what they thought about the school? And he's like, I don't know what you're asking. I'm like, when was the last time you asked them how things were going? And they're like, I don't know what you mean. And I'm like, forget it. So we sent out the survey to all the parents. And in 24 hours, we had a 98% response. Now, mind you, this audience is very vested, and it's a high-priced item, so they're going to come back pretty quick. But then what we did was we looked for patterns. Patterns can be individual. So somebody there is doing a lot of the issues. It can be, institutional with these type of things. But then we took it and we all sat down again. And then we assigned different things to people. Again, because it was parents of private schools, so we also had a bigger accountability type of thing when it came to they answered. We had to let them know we heard these type of things. And we also let that anonymous, but here's your optional contact if you'd like to be personally contacted about what we're doing. They almost obliterated their churn rate after that.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, the fixes were ridiculous. So small. But they had no idea there were the problems. They changed the day of the week that was like chicken nuggets and mac and cheese. Chicken nuggets and mac and cheese. These people were paying $25,000 a year to send their child there, and they were cheese that was Tuesdays instead of Wednesdays or something like that because it upset their kid. And they're like, what? Like those type of things. And it was like the tone of the emails was much more corporate. And it's like, these are simple fixes, but nobody wanted to ask because either they don't care or they're scared. Because it's hard. It's hard. Getting feedback's hard. I don't want to. Getting feedback after a talk or doing a program's hard because you're so vulnerable, right? It's just you. I had a feedback form once. I did a gig in Rhode Island where somebody on a scale of 1 to 10 about the keynote speaker hand wrote in with the pen in the margin a 0 and then circled his handwritten 0 and said I was 0 and then wrote in the comments, if I wanted to laugh, I would have gone to a comedy club. He was so furious that I was funny. And I'm just like, some people suck, yeah.
Scott, you have been so awesome.
Chris, can I answer Becky's real quick here? I know we're going over time, I think. But
yeah, and Leslie had a real quick one too. But go ahead.
Okay, Becky's just about, we don't get a lot of feedback on program surveys. Not sure if it's delivery method or if it's because people aren't invested enough to respond. So Becky, give the feedback program at the end of the program in person and have them hand them in on site. Real time. The quicker the feedback can be done, the better it's going to go. I mean, the more you're going to get from people, usually, yeah.
Leslie had a quick question about authenticity. Thank you.
So I love what you wrote about how important it is to be authentic on social media and really be yourself. But do you have any strategies for how we can do that when we represent an entire library system? You know, like for instance, my profile picture across all of our platforms is our logo. And I'm speaking on behalf of the whole library. I'm not speaking on behalf of me. And I'm in a kind of a conservative area, so I have to be very careful about the kind of humor I use. Our strategy is basically to do no harm and to ruffle no feathers. But I wish I could be more authentic. So do you have any suggestions on how I can, you know, what we can do to maybe cross that line a little bit without putting too much of our own skin in the game?
Yeah, it's a great question, because also you shouldn't have to put your own skin in the game if you don't want to, right? You don't have to be a public figure, you know, in front of everything on social and everywhere else. So you should be able to have that choice first off. And also, I need to remind everybody, it is very easy for me to say, go ahead and be your authentic self. You have no competition, when I'm allowed to be my authentic self. Right? I don't change what I say on stage. I don't change what I say when I go to a more conservative area. I don't change what I say when I go to a different country. I just get to be Scott 24/7, and I walk around in blissful ignorance about it. So your authentic self, the problem is I go up there and I show initiative, I'm aggressive, I'm a rah-rah. But if instead of me, I was, let's say, the president of Finland, and I went out and danced a bit, well, then it's the freaking news, right? That's the problem here. So when it comes to that, what I mean by authenticity a lot of the times is not necessarily always what you're doing in social, but what you're not doing. So I don't think it's very authentic all the time to try to chase trends all the time.
Right.
I don't think it's trying to, like, you don't want to try to, look, I remember saying when I was younger, I never want to be the old guy at the club or at the bar. Right. And then my buddies went back to our old place in Toronto when we were 30, just to, you know, reminisce and go back. And we showed up and we're like, we're them. We're older than the staff. We need to go. So that's self-awareness of a brand. So some can make it funny, though. It's like you're so out of touch. It's like the Steve Buscemi meme showing up in high school. Hello, fellow kids. Yeah, you know, and that's, so you can play with it for fun, but also you can still be the brand, and you can show up in the things under their window. I just saw, coincidentally enough, right before coming on here, was so Vaughan, an area here is Vaughan TikTok. So like this person here on Vaughan's TikTok, she's running the account. I haven't looked up her name yet, but she's using the trend perfectly. She's using the music, and the text says, texting my friends to let them know about Vaughan Public Libraries has a recording studio, guitars, drum set, DJ equipment for free. It's got 9,000 likes on it right now on TikTok. And it's her talking about, I went to the videos, and it's her scattered throughout, but also some more generic, more kind of corporate, you know, watered down stuff as well, because, you know, somebody's the board or somebody wanted you to put that out there. Like, you know, Donna could tell you about that. So, you know, you get that whole world. And so she becomes part of the personality without being the person under the account. Mm-hmm. So because that is important. There still is that separation of brand and individual on social, depending on how you want to do it, because then somebody else can come in and do it as well. That's one of the nice things about having a library account. Other people can do things as well. Like you've got, because there's also opportunities here where authenticity, like to me, is about who you are, but the authenticity of a library and yourself is like, is there a video out there of you talking about what a library means to you? Not scripted, not written for a magazine where everything is fancy and it's a press release. Talk about what does a library do for a community without corporate speak? Like that's authenticity to me. Okay. You talking about what matters to you. Mm-hmm. And the problem is authenticity and scripting is sometimes contradictory. But again, I'm somebody who doesn't use one, so it's easy for me to say. Most people in front of a video, it's hard for them to do. It's nerve-wracking for people to do. So even if that's in the written form too, it doesn't have to be TikTok, it doesn't have to be all the stuff. It can be just under and about us. The authenticity is saying, Leslie has been at the library for this amount of time. Her favorite moment in the library, and this was this. She also loved, I'm just randomly picking stuff, but she loves horses, this, and she competed in this competition 3 years ago. But that's authentic. It's just putting personality to something a lot of times, not the other way. I had somebody at an event in Napa come up to me a few months ago, and it was open bar, so this is going to be fun. And he came up to me after my talk, and I had on the slide, when you are your authentic self, you have no competition, right? That's a big slide I've got about it. It's one of my most shared sayings I've done. And so I'm talking, and I'm finished, and he comes up to me staggering, right? These are the same people, by the way, that say you have to be professional at work. So anyway, so he comes up to me, and he's like, well, I see, but how do you be authentic? And so I started talking, kind of like what I'm saying now. It's not about just like, because if you're an asshole, you're authentically an asshole. So, and he's like, yeah, but you just can't, you just can't say anything anymore. And I'm like, oh, here we go. And I just looked at him, and I'm like, so, and I looked down at his name tag, Dave. What can't you say anymore? Come on, everybody, gather around. Dave's going to share some wisdom with us. What can't you say, Dave? And then that was like, so it's like authenticity. The problem is that word is so much overused and so much like it's a tactic. I don't think authenticity is a tactic. I don't think conversation's a campaign. I think it's just being human, right? I think it's being human. And that's what libraries are about, is humanity, not corporate, not stuffy, not conservative, not progressive. It's community. It's humanity all the time. And if you can be funny, great. I always try to say, don't try to be funny if you're not, because it either bombs or goes really wrong. And the problem is, though, that a lot of people in leadership positions think they're funny because people that work for them laugh at their jokes. But those are laugh-stitutes. They are paid to laugh at your jokes. So if you're not funny outside of the office and nobody laughs at your jokes, be careful.
Thank you so much, Scott. Yes, thank you so much, Scott. Thank you for giving us all this time. This was so awesome. I'm just blown away that you came to do this. This is wonderful. And if you would, Scott, before you go, I know some people have to jump off, but let's see, we still have 10, 15. Can you give me two numbers between 1 and 15?
You want two numbers between 1 and 15?
Yes.
7 and 12.
Okay, so 7 is J.C. Lyons, and 12 is B. Hoffman. I don't know first name B. Hoffman, but they. So I'm going to give one of them a copy of QR Codes Kill Kittens, and the other one will get a copy of our next book, which is going to be Creativity Inc. So
that's a great book too.
Yeah,
great
book. We're looking forward to it.
Book.
Talking about Pixar.
Yeah.
So.
Great book.
Wonderful. And again, thank you again, Scott. Anything we can ever do for you, anytime you have library questions, hit us up. And look forward to when we read your next book, and we'll schedule about 3 hours for that.
Yeah, please, yeah. And again, I apologize for what I did with the second book and mailed it to all your libraries. My bad.
Right. We'll let them know that we got a personal apology for that. So thank you, Scott. Thank you so much, everyone.
Right.
And look forward to talking to y'all again soon. Thanks.
Right.
Have a great day. Thanks, Scott.